Well, howdy ho there, everybody. How are we doing today? Hopefully, you're all doing absolutely peachy keen fantastic, full of the love of the Lord and all that good stuff. Today, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of different things, but today I partially just wanted to talk a little bit about my own spiritual journey and just talking to God. I was going to show off some modifications I made to my build. See, this is actually the same place where we started out. We started our mine. Ooh, puppies. Puppies are nice, aren't they? I love you. Same place we did. A friend of mine left a cake for us. Isn't it very nice? You know, I was like, I want a big thing. I always like having big things. Building big things, even if it's like as simple as a giant tower thing. So, attached to the top of my old base, I built this. Let's go for a little ride, huh? Hang it, hang it. Oh, wait. There we go. That's better. Okay, now let's go up a little. There we go. Look at this. Big old trail that leads us all the way back to the base. Isn't that really nice? You know, I found that lately I've been having a little bit of a hard time getting motivated for certain things. I've just been like, working at certain things for so long, and they weren't like super motivating to me. And it was just getting to a point where I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I have an issue of some sort. But then I realized that, you know, whenever you have an issue, the best thing to do is to talk to God about it. You know, people have all kinds of look skulls. People have all kinds of different ways to get through their issues and the things that bother them. People have a wide variety of ways they deal with the world and the things going on around them. But I found personally is just that if I really don't know quite what to do or something's really bothering me, I just kind of turn towards God and try to do my best to just, be honest and just tell God what's bugging me, why I'm thinking about things a certain way, there's some red ones in there. Why eh, why I think things are happening in my life a certain way, as opposed to another. Hey, look, a froggy. Nice, sweet pea. Hope you're having a wonderful time. And, I found it was interesting. I just had this moment where I just kind of like let out some of the frustration I was having, where I'm like, I don't know, I'm having a hard time um, getting motivated to do a certain task. Let's say in this case it was a certification test, CCNA, which is something. By the way, I added some new stuff. I think it looks really pretty. I really like the cherry blossoms, in case you couldn't tell. But basically, I was having a hard time getting motivated because I was just like, well, is this really what I wanted to do? Is this really the thing I want to spend so much time on? And all this other stuff. And for a while there, it was just kind of stewing in me a little bit. But then I realized that I hadn't really talked to God about it in a little bit. So I just, was just like letting out all my little frustrations, all my little uncertainties, and just kind of, you know, in the moment, really trying to get close to God and really just like say, this is what's bugging me right now, and I don't know. I don't quite know what to do. And the thing that was so funny about it was just being really sincere and just pouring my heart out to God. Like, I know it works, but sometimes it always leaves you a little bit shocked because you're like, oh, it works really well. Like, I have this desire suddenly to get past this task, to do good, and to, keep going. I recently made a little list of short-term goals and things I'm studying to do and things I want to do. 'Cause, for a while there, for instance, one of the things I wanted to do is improve my art. I used to draw a lot. Haven't drawn as much lately. And I was thinking, well, I could draw fun little religious type comics that are silly and informative, maybe. I can draw pretty pictures of MaKali. Because, I always like having more pictures of MaKali. I could draw a little picture of Jesus giving the thumbs up or doing a sick flip on a skateboard because I think that'd be pretty cool. And, I was finding in this CCNA and in this computer stuff that approaching it from the right mentality helps tremendously. Like, especially if the task takes a long time, you can get to a point where you don't necessarily almost want the thing anymore. At a certain point, it's like, at least for me and some other people I know, if it's a goal that takes a long time, it can get harder and harder to stay focused on one thing. That's something I've been working on lately is trying to stay focused on certain tasks and always being trying to, you know, like be on task in the sense of always trying to make a little bit of progress. And sometimes what I've learned is that, I'll talk to God and I'll tell God, like, this is what I'm feeling right now. And, you know, what do I do? And honestly, there have definitely been times where it felt like um, the best answer I could possibly give is to simply say, take a break. And sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. It depends what you're trying to do and why. But I found that just taking a break and reevaluating, not just taking a break to take a break, although you can do that too, and it's good to take breaks, and you should make sure that you're letting yourself have breaks and things like that. But I found that I think what was much more important to me in that moment was figuring out, okay, what is it that I want from this and why? How does this make my service to God better? How does this make my life better? How does this make it so that I can do more things in the appropriate way to get closer to the Lord? How can I, you know, really have that strong relationship that I crave for with the Lord? And what what exactly do I need to do to keep it going? And I found that rather than simply asking these questions and wondering about it myself, sometimes what the most effective thing to do would be to sit there and just pour the heart out to God and just be like, God, here's what I'm thinking about right now. Help me, please. And she's very quick to respond. I find if you are really willing to listen. I think sometimes we think prayer doesn't get answered just because some of the answers we do get are not the ones we wanted or expected. So sometimes it just turns into a matter of making sure you understand why you're doing what you're doing and reevaluating and, you know, trying to be as honest as you can, not just with others, but also with yourself. That can be part of the difficulty is learning For instance, what is an answer that comes from guilt? What is an answer that comes from genuine desire? What, like, sometimes you just get this feeling, or, I've had this feeling in the past. I've known plenty of people who have had this feeling of, like, they know they need to be doing something, they just don't quite know what. And, it's an effort. You gotta go back again and again and ask God again and again to help you out, and ask God again and again to, help purify yourself, and to, have that relationship, that thing that we are truly craving when we're out here doing all this. And to, and also it can be good to analyze the things that you desire and see, if I go into it on a deeper level, is this a good desire to have? Is this a desire that's misleading me? Is this a desire that is, like, ultimately not healthy? And, ultimately you want to give up most of your desires and things like that, but, sometimes you can't help but just uh, want things for where you are. And, everybody's at different parts of their spiritual journey, so sometimes you're going to have different difficulties, and you're going to have different little blockages and things like that, and you got to work through them. I haven't quite decided what I want to do with this room yet. You come back to it like, and then go, nah. This room, I made it a gigantic eaty thing, and then I'm looking for cool table designs. I'm gonna put a bunch of tables in here, like a food court type deal. And then if you go over here, there's a big lookout area. It goes into this weird tower thing I made. Lots of space. Lots of stuff we're working with. And, there's a variety of ways as well to get yourself more motivated. I find that examining why I want something done and what step will bring me on a grander journey is often very helpful. Pretty sure I've shown you guys the docs before, but I'll show it again because it's cool. And, sometimes you just need to reform your reason for doing what you're doing. But also sometimes you just need to embrace a little chaos in your life and understand that some things change and that you're not always going to be 100% motivated. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop trying. And I think that sometimes we end up waiting a very long time to find the quote unquote right motivation to do something. Like the right motivation to really start a spiritual journey, the right motivation to go to school, the right motivation to do all sorts of different things in our lives. And I have found, at least in my personal life, that rather than waiting for motivation, rather than waiting to, for instance, feel like I'm being called by God, I simply do my best to start tasks. And I'm finding that now that I'm trying on like a daily basis to work on certain skills, that certain skills are, in all honesty, it's not even that they're hard to learn, it's just that you have to be consistent. And, remaining consistent is key to gaining a lot of different skills. Being able to see the end goal, but not just that, but also to find things that you enjoy doing. I sometimes find that people put a lot of time and effort into doing things they really don't enjoy doing, myself included. Um, and what I've found is that sometimes it's simply a frame of mind thing. Like, You have your right mind frame. The right mind frame. There you go. To actually end up getting things done and accomplished. And sometimes it's as simple as also just like if you're frustrated, rather than letting that frustration build up, sometimes you gotta talk to people around you and things like that. Sometimes you just gotta take a moment and try to truly appreciate everything that's going on around you and how blessed you are in any given moment and how you should do your best for the people around you. And motivation will come and go, but if you stick to the tasks, you can definitely get things done. The only real question is finding the right task. Find the thing that brings pleasure to you, and find the thing that makes you happy, makes it feel like it's worth getting up in the morning. And I know a lot of that sounds very, people would probably say, well, that all sounds easy. It's like, well, I mean, like a lot of cliches, for instance. The reason certain things become cliches is because they're true. And sometimes people just need to be reminded of the fact that I don't want to leave that, and I also kind of want to put window panes. Actually, we're gonna. And that sometimes you just gotta really and truly be willing to put the time and effort into things. And that doesn't mean that if you're having a hard time getting motivated, that, like I said, I don't understand or anything like that. I mean, I have that plenty of times. But I gotta tell you, it's definitely worth it if you're willing to stick to it and do your best. Don't let other people determine tasks for you. One of the important parts about growing up is learning that doing things for community is great, but sometimes you still have to do things for yourself and make sure that you're taken care of. Don't sacrifice your own. Oh, cool. Don't satisfy your own mental health to please others. Not, I mean, Jimmy Dean. And know that, well, I say that even as I'm like, hey, serve God. Which I guess that's kind of pleasing another, but it's actually pleasing you at the same time. Oh, crazy. You know, do your best to live well and to treat others well. Remember to embrace kindness. Yeah, that is the correct one. Don't just sit there and be critical of yourself because you haven't gotten done the thing you wanted to get done today. Remember that there's always time to keep going, that you have to be willing to put in the time and the effort to do it. That's the hard part. The hard part is making sure that you actually put in the time and the effort required to accomplish your goals. And, if you're having a bad time, it's okay. And, that happens to folks. It doesn't mean that you're broken or that, you're a bad person or not, you know, producing enough or anything like that. That's silly Billy talk. And I know that in our culture, people often tie their usefulness to whether or not they are generating some sort of product or generating some sort of monetary value. But you should always make sure that you take time, make sure that you get to express yourself, that you get to have what you're truly after, and things like that. And there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but the thing I think is really important is to make sure you take at least a little bit of time and ask yourself what you're about and why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just keep pushing forward with something because you think it's what you're supposed to do. Figure out why it motivates you. Figure out why you want to do something. I find that a lot of people I talk to, they have these goals that are often very arbitrary. Things that are often not even things that truly seem to make the person happy, just things that are, just kind of there. And sometimes you find it, at least I find it, difficult to talk about that because it's like, well, I want to tell them, like, sometimes you're just doing things to do them. That's not necessarily always the worst option either. Sometimes you do things just to do them because it can help you if you're in like a bad spot. Like if you're depressed or something, it can help you just to get out and do things sometimes. Cool, that's fine. But you should also know that there's always time to reevaluate and that you don't have to be in a rush for anyone else. Do the things that bring joy to your own life. And sometimes that can be a little hard, I know. Just do your best. Not everything has to be perfect. Not everything has to, you know, light the heavens on fire. But as long as it's making you happy, as long as you're feeling some of that genuine love and desire, even if it's something that people think is silly, it's probably worth pursuing. Make sure that you take care of yourself out there, okay? I want you to know that I love you and God loves you, and that, you deserve to be happy just as much as anybody else. And remember that God's always there and always willing to listen. That you can pour out your heart to God at any time. And that when you pray with sincerity, you will get an answer. It just might not be the answer you were expecting. Okie dokie, artichoke. Okay, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful one. And I will be praying for you, and I hope you're praying for me, and let's do our best to make this little world a paradise. Why not? Okay. Well, bye. Love you. Bye. God loves you. Bye. 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 Bye.